5 spine-chilling true horror stories from this summer, revealed secrets of the cursed and sinister. Hannah could feel it in her bones, the palpable dread that seeped through the cracked walls of her home in Hillwood Heights. The silence of the night was thick, almost suffocating, as if the air itself held its breath, waiting for something sinister to happen. Shadows flickered near the trees lining her yard, eerie figures moving with unnatural haste. A cold sweat trickled down her back as she replayed the stories whispered between neighbors, cautionary tales of children who disappeared, leaving nothing but echoes of laughter in their wake. Though it was just a gas station job on the night shift, the hours stretched like an eternity. Hannah longed for the daylight, when the sun would lift the veil of darkness where shadows thrived. But she was chasing the bills that piled higher by the day, leaving her home vulnerable, alone. Her 2 kids, Jamie and Gracie, waited in a silence that almost felt like a secret. Were they safe, really? Each night, she returned to find the same strange events unfolding, a flicker of movement on her security camera, whispers drifting through the night air. She'd brush it off at first. Just neighborhood paranoia, but that changed when Mr. Caldwell came knocking more often, always with a smile too wide, eyes darting over her kids with unsettling interest. "Let me help you, Hannah," he'd say, and it would feel like a hand sneaking in the back door, ready to snatch away something precious. The old tales swirled in her mind like a loaded gun, chilling stories that warned of friendly faces hiding a far more sinister intent. So many children, and nobody talking about it. A curse laid across Hillwood Heights. Then one fateful night, after a long shift, she came home to find Jamie missing. Panic surged like an electric shock through her veins. That feeling in her gut turned to raw terror, a smothering blanket. She burst outside, heart pounding, calling his name into the void. The neighborhood was unnaturally still, the laughter of children that once filled the air replaced by an echoing silence that constricted her chest. In her frantic search, she stumbled into a forgotten park, swallowed by dark trees, the whispers of folklore woven into her growing horror. A place rumored to be haunted, a space tightly bound by the roots of lost names and faces long gone. She had heard of Mr. Caldwell's family, of their links to sadness, how homes around here seemed cursed to remember the children that had vanished into the night. As her breath quickened, Hannah realized her mistake. She'd let familiarity blind her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The weight of dread crashed over her again. Jamie. She had to find him, her heart racing as she realized Mr. Caldwell's relentless kindness must have been a ruse. The shadows weren't mere figments of her imagination, they were hunting. Anxiety wrapped around her like a noose, tightening every second. And as she turned to race back home, she felt someone watching her from beyond the trees. That laughter echoed once more, cold and chilling. It pierced through her resolve and filled her mind with what-ifs as she raced against the darkness closing in behind her. Would she find Jamie, or would he join the legends of children lost to the curse? Hannah's heart thundered in her chest as she hastened her steps, the line between the familiar and the terrifying blurring with every heartbeat. Time was running out, and the shadows were always one step ahead. Hannah's breath came in ragged gasps as she pushed deeper into the park, each step crackling like broken glass underfoot. The world around her felt surreal, the moonlight casting elongated shadows that twisted and danced in the corners of her vision. Fear prickled at her skin, yet she pressed on. She had to find Jamie. Each call of his name echoed into the abyss, swallowed by the oppressive silence that surrounded her. Sudden rustling in the underbrush forced her to stop. The air thickened, and she strained her ears, heart racing. "Mom." The voice, soft and terrified, cut through the darkness. It was Jamie. Relief rushed through her, but it was immediately tangled with anxiety. Where was he? "Jamie! Where are you?" she shouted, her voice trembling as she searched the shadows. The whispers seemed to grow louder, indistinct murmurs that woven through the trees as if mocking her desperation. "Mom, help!" His voice quivered again, and she began to run toward the sound, a chilling instinct flaring within her. Following the cries, she stumbled to a clearing illuminated by a sickly light. The ground around her rippled with a pulsating energy, flickering like an old movie reel. There, in the center, stood a gnarled tree, branches twisted and clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. Shadows coalesced beneath it, roiling and churning as if alive, stretching toward her. Fear constricted her throat, but she forced herself closer. "Jamie!" Her voice pierced through the cacophony, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadow, small and fragile, a child, but not her son. Hannah's heart plummeted as the features of a long-lost boy came into focus, eyes wide with a terror she recognized all too well. "Mom!" He stared at her, voice barely a whisper, "Help me. Don't leave them." "Who?" she gasped, panic bubbling up again as the shadows began to ripple closer. The boy raised his hand, pointing behind her. Just in time, Hannah turned to face whatever horror lurked behind. There stood Mr. Caldwell, his smile grotesque, stretching impossibly wide, eyes dark and hollow. "Why so worried, Hannah? We've been waiting for you." His voice was smooth, dripped with honeyed malice. The flicker of movement behind him coalesced into a mass of shadowy figures, faces she couldn't recognize, pale and shimmering, each one filled with sorrow and longing. The dread rose inside her like a tide, crashing against her resolve. "Get away from my son!" she screamed, fear morphing into fierce protectiveness. But there was no Jamie to be found, only this nightmarish vision before her, urging her to join them. "Join us. It isn't too late," Caldwell beckoned, his voice like cold steel. She felt their pull, a sickening mixture of yearning and despair washing over her, but she fought against it, shaking her head to dispel their lingering whispers. With one desperate motion, she lunged forward, searching for any trace of her boy amidst the shadows. "Jamie!" she cried again, spiraling deeper into the clearing. The figures hissed, an almost indiscernible chant reverberating through the air, pulling at her heartstrings. Just then, she felt a cold hand grasp her wrist. She gasped, spinning around to see a shadowy figure staring back at her with eyes full of desperation. It wasn't Jamie, but a boy who looked eerily similar. He opened his mouth to plead, but instead, the wind howled through the trees, drowning out his words. She was surrounded. The dark figures closed in, their whispers now a deafening roar, drowning her thoughts. Hannah realized with horror that the tree was no mere tree, it was a prison. In her gut, she felt the urgency of a choice, and time slipped through her fingers like sand. Would she plunge into their world to find Jamie, or would she fight and risk losing everything? Hanging in the balance, she could feel the darkness pulling her in as the figures beckoned. The laughter returned, echoing in her ears, sharper and crueler this time. What choice would she make, and would she find Jamie again before it was too late? Hannah stumbled, the chill of the shadows biting into her skin as she wrestled with the decision: fight or succumb to the depths of despair. The cold figure held her wrist tighter, eyes pleading but wide with a fear that mirrored her own. It was like staring into a mirror reflecting the agonizing choice she faced. "Please, help me," the boy's voice strained against the whispers, the sound surrounding them swirled like a tempest, growing denser, heavier. The figures closed and even Mr. Caldwell remained still, a grotesque grin plastered across his face, thriving on her confusion. "Where is Jamie?" The words shot out like arrows, desperation tinging her voice, demanding answers. But the shadows only stirred, pulling him closer into their embrace, inching her closer to surrender. "Mom!" the strange boy cried, suddenly echoing Jamie's tone so perfectly she felt her heart snag. But it was too late, the shadows were relentless, the figures coiling around her legs as if the ground itself was rebelling against her footing. With a swift motion, she ripped her wrist from the boy's grasp, fueled by raw instinct. The echoes of laughter shrieked around her, mocking her every move. She turned and ran, the specters swirling aggressively behind her, reaching out with elongated fingers that could snatch the very soul from a heart. As she broke into a sprint, the clearing morphed, twisting the landscape into a labyrinth of darkness. She dashed through the underbrush, heedless of the branches tearing at her clothes, the sharp claws of foliage scratching at her skin. The air was thick with an electrifying charge, her breath stuttering in the energy of the unseen. "Jamie!" she yelled again, voice raw and pleading. But it was lost in the chaos, absorbed into the night. The shadows chased her, now forming grotesque apparitions, all of them silent, but their sinister presence was deafening. Just as panic began to close its icy grip on her heart, she caught sight of a glimmer, faint but undeniable, dancing just ahead. Stumbling forward, she reached for that glimmering light, willing it to lead her to rescue. Hope flickered and dimmed with each step, but she couldn't let go, not now. As she neared the hazy light, a chilling realization hit her. It was the old tree from the clearing, but this time, it pulsed with a golden glow that seemed to promise safety. Could this be a beacon? She hesitated at its base, instincts warring against her. It was beautiful yet felt like a trap. Then she heard it, the sound of laughter again. But this laughter was different, it was that of children. "Jamie!" Her heart surged, compelling her toward that warmth. "Come on. Over here." A voice called from the flickering light, high-pitched and innocent, too innocent. She stepped toward it, the shadows hesitating, as if buying time to decide her fate, but just before she reached out, the figures behind her closed in, the air thick with their desperate energy. "You can't leave. Join us." They hissed in unison, their fingers just inches from her back. The golden light dimmed as dread crashed over her. The pull of their realm threatened to suffocate her. Her heart pounded like a war drum, a primal urge to escape whispering through her mind. Hannah faced the light, the haunting laughter grew louder, rising to a crescendo, drowning out her thoughts. She had to make her choice, and she knew if she crossed that threshold toward the glowing respite, everything could irrevocably change. "Mom! Help me!" came Jamie's voice again, piercing through the cacophony. Would she step into the light for hope, or face the darkness to save what was left of her son? The laughter swelled, and Hannah's heart tightened as she stood at the brink, the shadows reaching forth, as if to drag her into their suffocating embrace. That a single breath, what came next would change everything, and she knew it, but the darkness was hungry. Could she truly resist? And in that moment of indecision, the trees whispered secrets of their own, secrets Hannah was not yet ready to hear. Hannah's breath hitched as she stood at that crossroads, the shadows clawing at her ankles, a clamoring chorus of sinister whispers wheedling in her ear. Each spectral syllable felt like ice water poured over an open wound. She could feel them tightening their grip, the weight of their despair pushing in on her as fear surged through her, electrifying her every nerve. "Mom!" The familiar voice of her son rang clear, cutting through the chaos surrounding her. It was close now, dangerously close, echoing through the darkness like a disembodied heartbeat. It lured her deeper into the grasp of the golden glow, but something inside her screamed that she needed to turn away. "Mom! I'm scared." The laughter swirled around her again, taunting, filling her mind with doubt. Was it Jamie's laughter or the laughter of the shadows? She couldn't tell anymore. Her world teetered on the edge of reality, and all she could cling to was that childlike plea. "Jamie!" she shrieked, surging back towards the glimmer of light, monstrous hope dancing in her chest. The moment felt rooted in time. She darted forward, only to feel a cold hand clasp around her ankle, a shadow at her feet. Panic ignited a blaze within her, she kicked and bucked, the voice now a desperate howl beneath her breath. Before she knew it, she was racing toward the tree again, her heart thrumming against her ribs as she fought against the wraps of darkness seeking to pull her down. She could see something shimmering at its base, reflecting the golden hue a pendant. With fierce determination, she lunged for it, if only to grasp a reminder of her old life. But as her fingers grazed its surface, a jolt coursed through her, a frigid wave that struck deep into her bones. The laughter abruptly extinguished, the children's echoes fell silent, leaving only a chilling void. What? She gasped, the pendant slipping from her grasp and clattering to the ground. Shadows momentarily halted, but then roared back to life with an even more ferocious intensity. There was no time. Hannah spun around, heart racing as she glanced over her shoulder, glimpsing the figures seeping in from every direction. One shadow pulled itself forward, your horror like a scream frozen in time. A face emerged out of the nothingness, a twisted, distorted version of Mr. Caldwell's, his grin morphed into a malevolent sneer. "You'll never leave this place, Hannah," he hissed, his words wrapping around her throat like a snake. Determination ignited within her when she spotted the flickering light once more. Between the shadows, she could see Jamie. He was there, his face marked by innocence and terror, pleading with her in a language only a mother could understand. "Mom! Please! Hold on!" She shouted, pushing forward, the brightness calling her name. She had to save him. She had to fight, but just as she reached out, the ground trembled, and the darkness erupted like a hellish wave, overwhelming her senses. Her foot caught a root, sending her sprawling onto the cold, damp ground. The shadows buzzed around her, laughter morphing into anguished whispers. "Service is our joy," they cried. Despair coursed through her veins. She scrambled for her feet, determination trading places with paralyzing fear. "I will save him," she screamed, but the words sounded hollow against the cacophony of despair, and then, everything froze. Silence fell like a heavy shroud. The shadows halted in their tracks, caught in the fragile moment. Hannah blinked, confusion sweeping over her. What was this stillness? A pulse radiated from her chest, drawing her gaze downward. The pendant lay cradled in the muck, shimmering brighter than before. It beckoned her like a lighthouse on a stormy night. Worry clawed at her mind. What if its pull wasn't for escape but for something deeply more sinister? The shadows resumed their advance, this time simmering with anger. A wall of screams splintered the silence, and Hannah knew this might be her last chance. "Hold on, my love." She lunged for the pendant. Would it be the key to her salvation, or the final nail in their coffin? As she wrapped her fingers around it once more, a blinding flash erupted, swallowing the darkness whole, and the world around her began to twist and shift again. But what would happen next? What lay beyond the light, and would she achieve what she so desperately sought? Or was it merely a fool's hope, leading her deeper into the shadows? Hannah felt warmth wrap around her like a heavy blanket. The blinding flash gradually quelled, revealing a new realm. It felt different, a landscape woven with threads of gold and silver, bright yet haunting. She squinted against the glare, desperately searching for Jamie. But he was gone. Panic flooded her veins like ice. "Jamie!" she screamed, her voice shaking. Silence echoed back, a chilling reminder of isolation. The shadows, though distant now, lurked at the edges of this golden reality, eager, waiting. She looked down, realizing the pendant was still clutched tightly in her hand. Its glow pulsed, rhythmic and alive, and she sensed a heartbeat, her heartbeat in sync with it. The fear drummed rapidly within her. What did it mean? Suddenly, figures materialized from the shimmering air. Children, faint outlines, like reflections in water. Their eyes were dark and hollow, yet their lips twisted into smiles that chilled her. They circled around her, whispering in unison, "Welcome, welcome. Join us. Where's my son?" she shouted, her voice rising above their murmurings. "Where's Jamie?" Laughter rang out, a cacophonous sound that made her stomach churn. "He is here, he is near." The voices trailed off, leaving a sense of foreboding lingering in the air. One child stepped closer, his features sharpening. It was Jamie, or was it? The resemblance was uncanny, but the eyes glinted with something dark, something that didn't belong. "Mommy," he said, his voice faltering, "I'm so tired." Hannah's heart broke, fear clawing at her throat. "No, you're not. You just need to hold on." She reached out, but something held her back. A tension constricted around her, as if the brightness was a prison now, and she was the captive. "Stay with us, stay forever." The children chimed, swaying gently. They beckoned, their fingers reaching out like the shadows that had once clawed at her heels. "No!" Hannah shouted, stepping back. The air shimmered with swirling light, but their grip became tighter. "You're not real. You can't have him." Jamie's image distorted, flickering like a faulty bulb, and a newfound desperation washed over her. She closed her eyes against the chaos, feeling the pendant hum softly in her palm. Every beat resonated with an urgency that stirred her instincts. "Think of him. Remember." A deep voice surged from the pendant, resonating through her bones. Hannah found herself cascading down memory lane's soft laughter, bedtime stories, the warmth of a hug. Glistening moments flooded her mind, grounding her to the love she held for Jamie. With a sudden burst of bravery, she shouted, "You cannot take my son. He is mine." The brightness surged, almost blinding in its intensity, and she focused on the feeling of being a mother, her undying love, fierce and unshakable. The children screeched, their joyful cackles turning to wails as the golden light convoluted and twisted. Shadows lunged but recoiled, unable to grasp her resolve. "You've no hold on us," she declared, heart racing. The golden world quaked and trembled as the shadows melted back into silence, receding like a tide. And in the stillness that followed, a figure emerged from the shimmering haze. "Jamie." "Hannah," he breathed, weak but whole. "Mom, you came for me." As she rushed toward him, arms wide, the pendant flared yet again. The weight of darkness pulled at them, threatening to consume this moment. Hannah could feel the urgency thrumming, pushing her forward. "Don't look back. Run," Jamie urged, his youthful voice strong with a clarity that seemed to break through the nightmare. Together, they sprinted toward a point of light that gleamed beyond the chaos. Would it be freedom or another trap? And just as they approached, the light flickered ominously, stretching like dark fingers waiting to snatch the light away. Would they make it? A thunderous boom echoed, sending shockwaves through the air as shadows surged again. Fear clawed at Hannah's heart with cold nails. Could they escape together, or was this just another illusion like before? "Stay with me, Jamie," she cried, her breath hitching. But as they drew closer, the laughter started up again, louder this time, ominous and familiar. Hannah stopped, heart pounding as the shadows closed in, feeling the breath of despair on her neck. "Don't let go." Jamie's voice echoed, but was it truly him? Could she trust what lay ahead? Or had the darkness merely taken a new form? And then she felt it, the pendant pulsing harder, thrumming in her hand as the light flickered dangerously, on the verge of extinguishing. The light around them flickered chaotically, casting terrifying shadows that twisted as though alive. Hannah's heart raced. They were so close, yet so far from safety. The golden path ahead pulsed like the pendant in her hand, promising hope but also evoking dread. "Keep running," Jamie urged, pulling her forward. His small hand was warm but fragile in hers, an anchor in the tempest around them. Yet, doubt nagged at her. Could this truly be her son? His voice was strained, and shadows seemed to flicker disapprovingly at their backs, as if a storm of whispers taunted them with every step. "Which way?" Hannah gasped as they neared the point of light, struggling to make sense of their surroundings. The air felt thick, heavy as if it were pressurized by unseen forces. With every breath, trepidation bubbled in her throat. "Mom, we have to go to the light." Jamie shouted again, but his voice quaked, adding weight to the uncertainty grazing the back of Hannah's mind. She glanced behind, and the shadows surged, forming shapes she couldn't bear to look at too closely. But as she turned back, the light ahead twisted, morphing into faces of the children from before. Their smiles were even wider now, an unsettling display of darkness that belied the sweetness they once seemed to hold. Join us," they chanted, luring her with a sing-song familiarity. Hannah's resolve faltered, fear gripping her tighter than ever. "No," she breathed, fighting against the mesmerizing pull. Her grip on the pendant tightened, it burned fiercely against her palm, a stark reminder of her love for Jamie and her unwillingness to surrender. "Mom! Don't listen to them." Jamie's urgent cry cracked through the din. Instinctively, she pulled him closer. As she did, the brightness of the pendant blared with intensity, drowning out the voices. "Hold on." An explosion of light engulfed them both. Hannah felt a warmth that melted through the icy grip of despair. The laughter faded, replaced by a deafening silence that was almost comforting after the chaos. But the relief was short-lived. The ground beneath them trembled, and a roar of wind spiraled outwards, a violent entity eager to reclaim the pair. "No. Stay together," Hannah shouted, clutching Jamie tighter. She could feel her heart pounding like a war drum, thrumming to the rhythm of the world around them folding in on itself. "Where's the exit?" she shouted, panic shaking her voice. They were enveloped in a whirlwind of shadows and glimmers, an otherworldly cyclone. All direction seemed lost, and yet the light continued to call to them, sweet yet sinister. "Mom, look!" Jamie pointed wildly. Within the chaos, a glimmer, one so vibrant it penetrated the knot of dread, stood clear, cutting through the haze like a beacon. Hannah hesitated. "But what if it's a trap? It's our only chance," he insisted, his grip steadying hers. In his eyes, she saw a flicker of the brave boy she knew, a fierce glint of determination. And then emotional clarity pierced through her fear she would have to trust him. With a decisive burst of strength, she pulled him toward the glowing exit, ignoring the laughter that spiraled around them. "Run!" With every ounce of her being, she propelled them forward, charging toward the light that now stretched like an open doorway, but just as they reached out for that elusive freedom, a shadow lunged, coiling around Jamie's ankles. He stumbled, falling backward as Hannah felt her heart lurch. "Hang on!" she screamed, everything inside her collapsing into sheer terror. With a swift movement, she grasped the pendant, its glow now radiating fiercely against the darkness. "No!" she shouted. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as light erupted. "Mom! I can't!" Jamie's voice faded, swallowed by the chaos. The light flared once more, and Hannah felt herself yanked backward, away from her son, a violent tug dragging her into the abyss. Desperation surged through her as she let out a primal scream. The world warped, blurring around her, and she couldn't tell what was light and what was dark anymore. Then everything snapped, and just like that, silence returned. Hannah blinked, disoriented and gasping. The warmth was gone, replaced by a chilling cold that seeped into her bones. Alone. She was standing in a vast emptiness, the pendant gone. Behind her, shadows writhed. "Jamie!" she cried, voice cracking through the void. But no answer came, only the ominous whispers curling in the darkness, echoing around her. They danced closer with every heartbeat. Was that all a trick? She whispered into the loud silence. "What have I done?" The shadows loomed ever closer, ravenous and hungry. Hannah stepped back, eyes wide as the darkness enclosed around her. What had she unleashed? And was it too late to save Jamie, or had she unwittingly traded him for something worse? Hannah's breath came in rapid bursts, the cold biting through her clothes, leaving her feeling unbearably exposed. The shadows seemed to sense her vulnerability, drawing closer, hungry for her despair. She stumbled backward, her heart racing in sync with the whispering voices. "Where are you, Jamie?" she choked out, her voice trembling as she squinted into the thick darkness. Nothing answered but a low, mocking laughter that danced on the edge of her consciousness. Panic surged within her like a tide, overwhelming everything. She fought back the rising tide of desperation. No matter how trapped she felt, she couldn't give in. She had to find Jamie. In the back of her mind, a thought flickered: what if this emptiness was not just a void? What if it was a reflection of Jamie's own struggle? The idea ignited a spark of determination. "I'm coming for you," she shouted into the dark. I won't leave you. The moment her voice echoed through the abyss, the shadows shimmered, hesitating, as if her words were a repellent. Hannah pressed forward, her hands reaching into the darkness, grappling with the nothingness as she called Jamie's name again. Jamie. Suddenly, another flicker appeared in the blackness, a soft glow that made her heartbeat quicken. It was different from the light before. It felt wrong. Yet she couldn't ignore it. She stepped toward the light, but as she moved, the ground beneath her rippled, shifting like water. She stumbled, narrowly catching herself. The pulse of the light grew stronger. There was something familiar about it. Mom. The sound reached her, clipped and distant. Hannah's heart soared and plummeted at the same time. Jamie. Jamie. The glow surged, and there she saw it, a faint outline of Jamie, his silhouette flickering like a candle's flame caught in the wind. I'm here. But as quickly as it came, the light dimmed, shadows reaching out to devour it. Hannah hesitated. Should she risk everything to reach him? The whispers threatened to drown her resolve, but the spark of her motherly instinct burned brighter. Stay there. I'll get you. She shouted, ignoring the cold wrapping around her limbs like chains. With every ounce of strength, she sprinted towards the flickering glow. Don't come any closer. Jamie's terrified voice cut through the laughter, now sounding urgent and frantic. It's not right. Hannah skidded to a stop, her hands raised as if to ward off the encroaching shadows. What do you mean? She yelled, desperation spilling into her voice. The glowing form of Jamie flickered. Was it an illusion? It's a trap. You have to find the true light. Before she could respond, the shadows lunged in unison, forming into monstrous shapes that clawed towards her. The darkness roared, drowning out the remaining words from her son. She spun in panic, searching for a way out, but the laughing came closer, thickening the air with dread. She clenched her fists, searching her thoughts for what Jamie meant by the true light. And in a flash, she remembered the pendant, the warmth, the connection. It was power, a lifeline. But it was gone. Think. She urged herself, frustration boiling over. What if it wasn't about a physical object? What if the true light was something deeper, resting within her? Summoning all her courage, she fixed her eyes on the swirling shadows looming before her. I am Hannah, she shouted, voice echoing against the abyss, and I will not be trapped. The shadows recoiled slightly, hesitation rippling through them. Where is the light? She pleaded, eyes darting for any sign of hope, but instead of answers, she felt a dark pull grasping her heart. The shadows hissed, as if they were alive, responding to her defiance. And then, a cacophony of laughs erupted, circling her like vultures, the grip around her heart tightened like an iron band. What do you want from me? She screamed, panic clawing at her. You. They chanted in unison, their voices rising and falling like a chorus of the damned. Hannah's resolve wavered. No. I won't give in to you. Her voice was a whisper, swallowed by the darkness, and the shadows slinked. Closer, greed glinting in their void-like forms. Find the light, a voice echoed. Was it Jamie's? Or just another trick? Doubt filled the air like a heavy fog. Heart racing, Hannah backed up against an unseen wall of despair, breaths rapid and shallow. Was it really her son? Or had she lost him forever? Time is slipping. The shadows taunted, enveloping her in a whirl of darkness. As their grasp tightened, a sudden chill washed over her, and she realized the shadows were all around, but the true test lay ahead. She needed to confront the darkness within, face her deepest fears, and summon the light that had somehow seeped from her very being. But how? The very air seemed to shift, and Hannah felt a surge of energy. She closed her eyes, focusing on every instance of love she had for Jamie, every smile, every moment they shared. Come back. She begged, the shadows roaring around her, hungry for her despair. I won't let it take you. Suddenly, a warm flicker pulsed beneath her heart, as if the memories ignited a spark. Just then, a beam of brilliant light shot out from within, like a sun breaking through the clouds. And as the shadows recoiled, Hannah didn't know if it was enough. But she had to try before it was too late. What awaited her on the other side of that light? The light exploded around her, a blinding brilliance that pierced through the oppressive darkness. Hannah gasped, feeling its warmth envelop her like a long-lost embrace. This was different. This light pulsed with urgency, brimming with everything she had ever felt for Jamie. "Jamie, I'm coming," she called, her voice strong and resolute, the panic receding momentarily as hope ignited a fire within her, but the shadows weren't finished. They writhed and twisted around the light, forming a shroud that threatened to extinguish her burgeoning courage. They snarled, their forms becoming more grotesque, ever eager to snatch away her resolve. The laughter spiraled up, loud and mocking, echoing the taunts of her own insecurities. "You think you can save him?" a whisper hissed, slicing through the light. "You can't even save yourself." Hannah shook her head, the fear gnawing at her insides, irrational but oh so real. Shadows slithered within her mind, dredging up old ghosts' moments of failure, times she'd let Jamie down. But she pushed back, she would not allow her past to chain her here. "Shut up!" she screamed, eyes blazing. "You don't know me." As if responding to her anger, the light intensified, growing sharper, cutting deeper into the darkness. She felt herself drawn into a whirlwind, a vortex between reality and the surreal. Shapes swirled around her, faces twisted in agony and despair, their silhouettes melded together, forming a grotesque tableau. Among the faces, she saw blurred remnants of people she knew, friends, family, even those who had long since disappeared. "Mommy, help!" Jamie's distant voice resonated through the chaos, calling her once more. "Stay there. I can reach you," Hannah yelled, her heart pounding fiercely against her ribs. But the shadows surged forward, billowing like a storm, striving to drown out her will. "Find the truth," echoed the haunting voices of the shadows, now morphing into a chorus of lament and dread. "Find the light within or lose him forever." Hannah felt the weight of their words crush against her chest. "Is that what you want?" she shouted back, fighting for clarity amid the terror. "To turn me against myself? You've taken everything, and I won." With renewed determination, she concentrated on the flicker of warmth deep inside her. It grew, a beacon of light igniting her very core, brighter than before. Memories rushed in, the laughter, the hugs, the days filled with sunshine. Jamie's smile, innocent and genuine, flickered in her mind like a lantern guiding her through a storm. The darkness roared, swiping at her courage with elongated tendrils that felt icy and sharp. Each passing moment tightened its grip around her throat, stinging and suffocating. But Hannah was done cowering. "I am here for Jamie," she declared, her voice steady and firm. "I will find him, and I will break this curse once and for all." With each word, the light resonated, feeding upon her conviction. It swelled to an uncontainable intensity, burning fiercely against the encroaching shadows. Hannah felt it surge through her veins, electrifying her limbs, filling her with an almost primal power. As she stepped forward into the luminous glow, the shadows recoiled, screeching in rage. Shapes distorted and faded away, losing their grip on her sanity. The laughter morphed into wails filled with a grotesque mixture of anger and despair. And then, there in the heart of the light, she saw Jamie, a flickering silhouette bound by chains of darkness. His eyes were wide, stricken with fear. "Mom! Help me!" His face twisted, filled with terror, and Hannah's heart shattered at the sight. "Hold on. I'm coming." All at once the world tilted. The shadows surged back, a ferocious tide threatening to swallow her whole. Hannah braced herself, focusing only on her son. With every ounce of strength, she reached for him, stretching her hand as more shadows lashed at her, howling in protest. "Trust me, Jamie," she cried, as the pulsing light erupted. And with one final burst, she surged forward, a meteor breaking through the dark sky. But just as she reached out, To grasp Jamie's hand, the heart of darkness swallowed her whole, plunging them both into an abyss of chaos. Hannah screamed, the sound swallowed by a cacophony of despair. "Mom!" Jamie's voice echoed, followed by the silence that followed. And then she felt nothing. Hannah's vision darkened, reality slipping through her fingers like sand. What had she unleashed? When she opened her eyes, she found herself standing in a forest shrouded in fog, a trail of moonlight cutting through the mist. Jamie? Panic rose again, her heart racing. Where was he? She stepped cautiously forward, every crack of a twig underfoot seeming to laugh in mockery. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the distance, draped in shadows, beckoning her closer. Hannah, the voice was haunting, echoing through the mist. What awaited her in the shadows? Had she truly left the darkness behind, or did it follow ever closer, ready to strike again? The shadows whispered through the trees as Hannah moved deeper into the eerie forest, each step sending a shiver down her spine. The moon hung like a ghostly eye, illuminating the path ahead, but the darkness seemed to stretch endlessly behind her, a looming specter awaiting her mistake. Hannah, the voice called again, this time more insistent, mad with urgency. It danced between the trees, making her question if it was friend or foe. Who is there? She dared to take another step, heart thudding against her ribcage, ready to sprint back to the warmth of the light she thought she had found. But there was no going back now. She had stepped into this nightmare. As she squinted, the figure gradually solidified, revealing a face twisted not by darkness but by something else, a craving, a hunger. The faint moonlight caught the glint of its eyes, fierce and penetrating. You seek him, don't you? You want your son back. Where is he? The words slipped from her lips, desperate and hoarse. Your son is in a place no mother should ever tread, the figure hissed, a mocking grin spreading across its face. He is beneath the roots of this very forest, tethered to the shadows you so foolishly thought you could escape. A chill shot through her veins as the reality crashed down. You're lying. I won't believe you. But even she could hear the tremor, the seed of doubt that had taken root in her mind. Believe? It chuckled low, its voice gravelly, seductive. You heard him call. He is waiting for you. What are you willing to do to save him? What are you willing to sacrifice? The shadows around her stirred, their tendrils creeping closer, wrapping around her ankles, pulling her toward the forest depths. Panic erupted like a wild flame. No. Get away from me. She wrenched herself free, bolting down the path, but the mist swallowed her cries. Every direction felt a cacophony of whispers, each rustle of leaves mocking her. You can't run from the truth, they taunted, their tones familiar yet warped. Branching paths lay ahead, each one cloaked in dimness, promising haven yet threatening demise. Would she risk it, following the call of a figment she couldn't trust, or would she lose her son forever? Hannah, the voice came again, clearer now but more strained, filled with hunger. It wasn't just a cry, it was a plea layered with despair. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the fog that clung to her skin. Jamie. I'm coming. The sound of her own voice grounded her momentarily, but the darkness didn't relent. It surged forth, more visceral now, palpable, almost alive. Swallowing back the fear, she turned down one of the paths, eyes wide, searching for any sign of Jamie, praying she hadn't waited too long. Each step felt like walking on whispers, the very ground a trap of lies and distortion. She could almost hear Jamie's laugh echoing in the air, a sweet melody interspersed with sharp notes of terror, but then, the shadows grew dense, converging into a murky mass. A realization washed over her: the deeper she ventured, the greater the threat to her own soul. The figure had been right, the forest wasn't just a trap for Jamie, it was a snare for her, too. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the air, jagged and raw, tearing through the fog. It was a sound she knew well, her son's voice twisted by anguish. Mom! Please! No! Jamie! Panic flooded her senses as she ran faster, but the ground shifted beneath her, roots tangling around her ankles like snakes. What awaited her ahead? Was Jamie trapped within this nightmare, or was it too late to save him? The voice grew louder, frantic, drowning out her own fears. The shadows twisted around her, mocking her every step. A luminous glimmer appeared in the distance, and from it, lightning bolts of dread flashed through her mind. "Will you pay the price, Hannah?" She hesitated. What would she sacrifice to save her son? The whispers turned into shrieks, urging her onward. "His cries will be your undoing, or your salvation." As she stumbled forward, the trust in her own resolve faltered. Was she truly ready to face the darkness for Jamie, or would she find herself engulfed in it, lost forever? Ahead, a figure appeared, a child's silhouette, surrounded by shadows. Was it Jamie? Or was it a cruel illusion meant to break her will? Her breath caught in her throat, anticipation and dread melding into a singular force, ready to unleash an agonizing choice. What price would she pay, and what awaited within the shadows? Hannah stood at the fork of despair, a cascade of shadows twisted tightly around her, whispering her failures and fears in chilling unison. Each word sent ice through her veins, pulling at her heartstrings, where a dark promise lurked. "Jamie," she screamed, voice echoing in the haunted silence. The scream felt like an anchor, a lifeline in the overwhelming darkness. And then, she heard the faint rustle of movement. Shadows parted momentarily, revealing a flicker of light, a gentle glow suspended amongst the obscurity. "Mom!" Jamie's voice pierced the murk, heavy with desperation but unmistakably alive. In that moment, hope surged through her like wildfire. "I'm coming, sweetheart." With renewed determination, she charged down the glimmering path, dodging grasping tendrils of darkness that lunged toward her. As she sprinted, the voices turned frenzied, a symphony of madness vibrating against her eardrums, echoing her doubts. "You won't find him." The shadows never let go, but she pressed on, each heartbeat a rhythm of defiance. The light flickered ahead, pulsing with the promise of rescue. Just as she reached the edge of the clearing, the laughter returned, echoing with familiar malice. "What will you sacrifice?" It taunted, a dark spectacle she'd grown to understand in this relentless nightmare. Fear rippled through her, but she refused to be chained by doubt any longer. "I will sacrifice everything." Hannah shouted fiercely, anger and love igniting the very marrow of her bones. She held her ground as the cacophony escalated, shadows tightening their grip. The very ground shook, as if the universe itself demanded she bow to despair. "Mom!" Jamie's voice called out again, and that sound sliced through her resolve like a razor. She took another step forward. In a blinding flash, the shadows surged, pulling her backward as they howled in protest. Her heart quickened, pumping urgency through her veins. She couldn't falter now. Every push of energy within her was fueled by a singular thought: find Jamie. The light flickered, illuminating a distinct figure just behind those dark tendrils, a silhouette of a child bound in shadows. "Jamie!" She shrieked, and without thinking, without hesitation, she launched herself toward him. Time felt suspended as she lunged, grasping at the light with every ounce of determination. Closer now, a heartbeat away. The shadows recoiled, screeching like banshees, the noise clamoring around her as old faces twisted out of the darkness, taunting her every step. "Join us!" they hissed, weaving through the air like a poisonous fog. The memory of their hollow laughter rekindled her fear. What if she was too late? But she couldn't succumb to that fear again. Never. Hannah shouted into the frenzy, heart racing like a drum. She felt a warmth, a flicker of power as the pendant re-emerged in her mind's eye, spiraling around the essence of love she held for her son. With that, everything shifted. The light intensified, breaking through the noise, engulfing her in brilliance. "Mom, help me!" Jamie's plea shattered the darkness. She felt it. The depth of her love igniting like the sun, a beacon so vibrant it forced the shadows to falter. She charged forward, reaching out with fierce determination. As her fingers stretched, time slowed. Jamie's frightened eyes locked onto hers, desperation mingled with the brightest glimmer of hope. The shadows lashed out, but Hannah stood firm, her heart the holy tether that anchored her amid chaos. "Hold on, I'm right here," she cried, summoning the light from within, a pulsating strength that breached boundaries. With that, she felt herself being lifted, a surge of energy, a rush of warmth like sunlight breaking through the storm. She reached for Jamie, their hands clasping tightly amid the tempest of darkness. A blinding flash erupted, enveloping them both. "Together!" she shouted, her voice unwavering and filled with fierce maternal instinct. The darkness shattered as the blinding light enveloped them wholly. Forms twisted and dissolved into confused howls, shadows exploding into a burst of smoke and embers. When the light receded, Hannah found herself in a place that felt like home. They lay on a sun-dappled hill, the clearing awash with the warmth of daylight. Surrounding them was the laughter of children, joyous and free, unfettered by the chains of fear. "Mom," Jamie said, confusion etching his features, but his eyes sparkled with life. Relief crashed over Hannah like a tidal wave. She threw her arms around him, enveloping him in a cocoon of unwavering protection. "I'm here, Jamie. I found you," she whispered, fierce gratitude pulsing through her veins like adrenaline. The shadows retracted, dissipating into wisps of memory, leaving behind only the echoes of what once was. Hannah took a breath, fresh and warm, and looked out over the rolling landscape, a new world filled with potential and life. The laughter of children rang clear, merging with the rustling leaves, a sweet symphony playing deep within their hearts. No longer would the haunting echoes of fear define them. "We beat them," she murmured, holding Jamie tighter, an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of darkness. "And we always will," Jamie replied, innocence lighting up his face, a reassurance to face whatever lay ahead. They stood tall, side by side, ready to step into the sunlight together, a mother's love illuminating their path forward in a world unburdened by shadows. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, because every click makes it worth it. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your thoughts matter. And if you're a true fan, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to help spread the word.